Welcome to the Tevora Talks InfoSec podcast and daily news, brought to you by Tevora. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Tevora Talks. I am your host, Cash, along with my co-host and partner in cybercrime, Matt Mosley. What's up, Matt? How's it going?
Not too bad. Living in paradise.
Living in COVID paradise over here, all quarantined.
Just living my best life.
Yeah, totally. And with the best life comes best things in hacker time. This is a perfect time for hackers. And something, it doesn't seem to want to go away is ransomware. I don't know. It's like, it's been around forever. Companies think they're protected, right? Everybody we talk to, they're like, oh yeah, we're good. This is not going to happen to us. But sure enough, what happens?
Right. And shame on them for thinking they're good to go. That's all I have to say.
And it's usually
if you are still getting victimized by ransomware in 2020, shame on you.
Come on, man. Totally.
There's these things called backups.
But still, it's like, it still infects, right? I guess there's like only so much you can do to prevent somebody from overall clicking the wrong email.
That's true. I should roll that back a little bit. Yeah. We've had clients who, encrypted the entire workforce. And while those machines didn't need to be backed up or be, restored from backup, it still was downtime to get them, back up and operational. So yeah, I'll take back my comment earlier. I'm sorry.
Just shoot them while they're down, man. Why don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, but so ransomware, me and you have worked on plenty of ransomware.
It's probably one of so sorry to interrupt, but probably one of the worst incidents I ever worked on was ransomware. So with that said, sorry.
And it really cripples companies badly. Like, I think it's the worst kind of hack a company can get is ransomware.
I would agree. I would agree. Just in terms, I guess, there's probably been some financial hacks that were pretty bad. Like HB Gary Federal was pretty bad. You don't hear about that company anymore. That's how bad that hack was. But ransomware definitely for a company trying to survive, especially now, right? Where we've got our economy in this weird flux. We've got COVID-19 going on. Ransomware probably would be pretty detrimental, especially with the limited IT force and remote workers. Although, you probably would agree, but remote workers would probably be a little bit of a saving grace here because it might not spread to them unless they're on the network. So
yeah, unless everybody's, I guess, VPN'd in. And best case for ransomware, if you click the wrong email, they're not, I guess, as weird as that is.
Yeah.
But let's kind of talk about a little bit more about what ransomware is for some of those who aren't really super familiar with it, what it does to a network, how a company can get crippled from it, some recovery strategies and kind of stuff like that. So, from all the projects that we've been on, essentially ransomware, what does it do? It puts some malware into a system and essentially infects everything. And it encrypts core files and data files and everything. It just encrypts every file as much as possible. So nothing works anymore, right? Like from the servers to the computers to the users, laptops, and etc. So with that said, what are some of these that you've seen, that you've noticed, and how does it usually start?
Yeah. So I think probably within the last 2 years, we've seen like an uptick, right? I think WannaCry was kind of one of the first major campaigns, and that was just to mess stuff up. I don't know how much ransom they got out of that, but that was probably one of the bigger, more known incidents. But I would say since then, all the cases that we've been involved in, they usually start with someone clicking on something they shouldn't have in an email or opening an attachment. It's like always 95%. It's always email phishing. And then once that happens, it has like some sort of staging malware, like TrickBot or something, or a combination of TrickBot, Imitat, and then that brings in the ransomware. And it's just, it's detrimental to the entire environment because once it gets in, just spreads like wildfire. And we've had I think you were involved with me on that one where they didn't tell us about the 200 endpoints that they had. So we deployed our tools across the network, but then we were missing 200 endpoints that we had no idea about,
Mhm.
and they kept getting reinfected. And we're like, how is this happening? You know, and oh, we've got this segment over here that we weren't covering before. Oh, that's probably where it started. Thanks for that.
Isn't it interesting how like these infections, especially ransomware, it's kind of similar to what we're experiencing as a, humankind right now with this COVID thing. It's like the best way to take care of the problem is to segregate everybody. And what happens when you start like, cleaning everything up and you putting people back into population and then there's that one guy that everybody forgot about, that one computer, that one person, they come back into the stadium or they come back into the school classroom or whatnot, and boom, there it goes again, right? It'll start picking back up.
Absolutely, 100%. So I've used that analogy, I don't know, like for the umpteenth time since this all started with COVID-19, and people just look at me like I'm crazy or like that I'm just a super nerd. But I think you can equate the models are the same, right? For infection. Like, I mean, maybe not the spread, obviously, or the ratio, but the same methodologies apply. So for our IR life cycle, the incident response life cycle, there's a couple phases. The first one's identification, right? Figuring out what's going on. That's kind of what happened in December and January for COVID-19. Figuring out that this thing was happening. COVID-19 existed. What were the symptoms? How was it spreading? And then containment, which is kind of where we got, at least here in the United States, in March, and started, telling people to stay home and all that good stuff. And now we're kind of in the, well, we're still kind of circling in the containment area, but we're working on moving to the next phase, which is eradication and recovery.
We're trying
And
to at least, hopefully.
yeah, and so like you said, with a network environment, you've got, an endpoint, some sort of system that's infected and nobody knew about it or didn't get tested, just like a person. And then when it gets reintroduced into the environment with the rest of them, then it spreads again. And so, not to, try and bring this back to the pandemic that's going on that we're all trying to forget right now, but it is highly likely that if we start bringing everyone back into society early before we've got a good grasp on this, that we're going to get reinfection for sure, right? And that's exactly what happens in these network environments when we try to do our response to these incidents. So
Yeah, totally. And it's I remember that one company, another one that we went to. Fortunately, they actually did put, we had the sensors up, we had our tools in place, and the best way that they were approaching it is not like, hey, say, okay, turn everything on at the same time. Oh, we have 1,000 computers, we have 12,000 endpoints, whatever the number was. Flick them all back on. We're good to go. They were kind of releasing them in batches, and that was really helpful because before they even released that batch in back into the network, we were able to, by isolation, right, identify any irregular activity on those computers. So I think that's a big factor too, right? Is like, don't do everything at the same time. Take it slowly. Go in bursts. Do in group A, group B, group C, until you've covered the whole company. And I think that's a good strategy in general. Maybe it applies same thing we're going through in our daily lives right now with this COVID.
yeah, I agree. That was probably the best. Seeing that firsthand and watching them operate. So the client I think that we're both talking about was the one that was across multiple nations
Yep,
and had
that's
multiple
the one.
business units. And
All
so
around
that
the
was
world.
that's what we did, right? We went group by group within each country, and then we went each country by country to bring them online.
Exactly.
And in fact, one thing that the client did that we didn't recommend them doing, but they did, was they created a whole new network. Do you remember that? They were
Yeah.
bringing clean machines and putting them in a separate network that they knew was clean, and keeping the other ones in the Wild West that were infected. And slowly but surely, we were able to get them back up. But yeah, that was quite the ordeal. Can you imagine that happening now with the pandemic?
Oh my God, I don't know what would happen. I
Going
mean,
state by state, city by city.
that'd be that'd be a catastrophe right now,
Yeah,
honestly.
I don't think that
I
would
mean,
work.
like right now in the news, like recently, ransomware it does evolve all the time, right? It's not just one type of ransomware. The big ones that we've always dealt with recently, and I think the last year was Ryuk, RYUK.
Yeah.
And what does that one do? It just literally encrypts every data file, anything on the computer, ends it with .ryk, and then it's unreadable.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's some variants that say that it exfiltrates, but we never found that to be true in the environments we were in. So,
But recently, a company in the news was reported that they were hacked. Company is Visser Precision. They do manufacturing for aerospace. Okay. So some of their clients are big guys like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, SpaceX. And
and was
just
this another
imagine.
Ryuk?
No, it wasn't Ryuk. So this is
Oh,
a
okay.
newest version. This is called DopplePaymer.
Oh, interesting.
And this not only locks the data, but apparently it exfiltrates. And the way they were able to find out this was that these companies, like sensitive documents that were sent to Visser Precision, were leaked, like, you know, blueprints and schematics and whatnot. So this is even a bigger thing. And typically, from what I read and what I understood, they usually don't just immediately blast out the data just for the hell of it. They use it as kind of like a collateral, as a backup to say, hey, not only have we infected your systems, if you're not taking that seriously and paying our ransom there, but also we have some of your data. So it's like a double whammy, right? You got ransomware, everything's encrypted, and you have a data breach all in one package, which is just like recipe for disaster. I mean, if it was me and if it was a company that happened, I would probably have a heart attack.
Yeah, definitely. And I was looking it up here. It looks like they post their victims on a separate website, shaming them if they don't pay.
Yeah.
That
But
is crazy.
yeah, these guys are ruthless. It's from a company that also did an old one, BitPaymer and Dridex.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard of
Um,
those.
it's called, I think the attack group is Indrix Spider Attack Group.
Oh, that sounds like a CrowdStrike name.
Definitely shady sounding. But I mean, they're in the business of hacking, right? They've done a lot of stuff. Dridex, we were talking about a little earlier, and that was a big one, right? I think you mentioned something to me. That one does banking, right? It takes banking information. How does that one work? You were telling me about it.
Yeah, that one was using macros, I think, in Microsoft Word to infect, and then once it was in, it would do, if I remember correctly, it was do something like it would listen to the keyboard keystrokes, and then it would inject its own keys into whatever application or whatnot, and then I think through that is somehow they were committing the fraud, basically, which is
That's
pretty
crazy.
impressive.
That's crazy. I read somewhere that these DopplePaymer is like it builds off of BitPaymer. It works faster than BitPaymer did, so it spreads faster. And then they all use underlying Dridex code apparently to spread stuff as well,
Ah,
something along that line. So nonetheless,
that's
these
just what we
things,
need is a ransomware that spreads faster and works quicker.
yeah, exactly. And hey, that's scary because that one big company. So from what I remember, this is how it kind of went down. What happened there? Middle of the night, obviously the attacker doesn't just pop up at 2 p.m. on a Monday and says, hey, I'm going to attack you now, because that's when everybody's looking, right? So usually, like, they kind of drop their seed a little bit of time before, a week ahead of time or 2 weeks. No one knows, thinks everything is going great in the system, everything looks fine, but that guy's sitting there just waiting to drop the bomb. And like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., some off peak hour on a random day, weekend, Saturday, Sunday, when everybody's drinking or at the bar or having dinner with family, sleeping. That's when that guy goes to work essentially. And what was they got in and they hit. Usually they go after a domain controller, right?
Yep. At least that was the MO that we saw with the Ryuk stuff, on
Yeah,
the few that we did.
because I mean that's like the easiest way to just make it spread fast, right?
Yeah, I mean every endpoint has to talk to it at some point. So
So, and then what did they do? They didn't stop there. They don't go to one DC. They use that DC and they find more of them and more of them and more of them. And then how many were in that company? How many total DCs went down?
I won't say specifically, but it was in the teens.
Yeah, it was a lot, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could just imagine how much damage that did for those guys. But their biggest issue was they really didn't have a good redundancy strategy in place. I mean, the only redundant thing they had was what I don't even know what it was. What was their redundancy plan?
Um, I don't remember. I know that they didn't really have a security program or department, so that was kind of part of the issue. Is basically an IT team, and excuse me, and an IT team that had, I think, maybe a partner team overseas, but they were basically based here in the United States, trying to manage global networks. So it was real tough because I mean you've got a 9 to 5 team here in the United States, and then you've got all these other endpoints around the world that you have to support, just to keep them up, which is already, from our IT folks that may be listening, that's already a pretty hard task on
Yeah,
top of
totally.
adding in, the mix of doing security and making sure everything stays secure is pretty tough. So,
Yeah, so I mean, how they got hacked, who got hacked, let's put that aside. But generally for businesses, how can this really affect them, Matt? Like if I have a big company, this thing encrypts me, like what am I gonna do? What is the plan? How long am I gonna be down? And how does it really what does it really take to get me going again? And what are some strategies typically? Like what are the long-term effects I'm gonna face, short-term effects? I mean, things that you've seen in your long history in security, what happens?
yeah, I mean, so you have two options when you get hit by ransomware. You can pay the ransom, or you can try and recover from the ransomware. So the first option, we've seen it go well, and we've also seen it not go so well. So I'll start kind of there. Um, we have a third party that we work with that'll come in and negotiate with the attackers to try and find, a common ground of what would be a reasonable price to pay. And then they basically give you a decryption tool, and the third party will validate it, make sure it's good. It actually decrypts, make sure it doesn't reinfect the systems, make sure that the attacker has a reputable um, history of giving you the tool and paying for it. When you pay for it, it actually works, and also that
Reputable
they're not on
for
the terrorist watch list, right? Because we don't
Oh
want to
yeah.
be funding terrorism. So that's pretty interesting. Um, I say let's ballpark it. Say 7 out of 10. No, probably more than 9 out of 10. I think were successful in paying the ransom versus the one that paid and didn't get anything. And then
Mm,
of the nine that paid, one instance was that the decryption tool worked, but it didn't work on the large database files. So that was interesting because that's actually where the bread and butter was for that client. So,
interesting.
so it's still, I mean, it's not a complete coin toss, right? It's not a 50-50, but
But I
if
mean,
if you can if you can recover from backups, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was saying like if you do pay,
Yeah.
aren't you putting like a bigger target on your back though?
Right, and that's the other thing is like, well, now we know they pay, so maybe we should wait a few months. Let's wait till Q3, right?
Yeah,
Or let's wait till
ask
the
for more.
holiday rush, and then we're gonna hit them again. Especially like if it's a retail org or something, because especially if it's a retail org, and I have no knowledge about Walmart or Target, but let's just say Walmart gets hit with ransomware, which I think they have a pretty good team over there. They're not gonna be hit too hard, but let's just say they did, and it's right at the Christmas rush. Like, let's say it's right after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, between Black Friday and Christmas. Do you really want to be down for 2 weeks in the most busiest shopping time of the year, right?
Oh,
No.
absolutely not. No way.
Right.
You'll
So
lose lots of money.
if you could make 100 million and the ransom is 10 million,
Yeah,
probably
pay
going to
it.
pay it. Right?
Like you have no choice. You're kind of cornered, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's up to the business to decide, right? That's above my pay grade. I don't have those stripes on my shoulder to be to make that decision. But people that are smarter than me that lead companies, like our CEO would probably be making that call. He could definitely figure that part out for us. But anyways, so that's the other, and then the other side of the coin is to just try and recover. Do you have the backups? Do you have the workforce that can do the recovery? That was one thing that we struggled with. One of the bigger ones that we had was that their team was very limited. We had to bring in our team and others to kind of help them do the recovery. And then the other part is, how much downtime are you going to be just in the recovery process? Because in that instance, a lot of the workstations got encrypted, but nobody cared. There was nothing valuable on those machines. Maybe valuable to that individual person. Maybe they had home pictures or something, but overall, from a business standpoint, nobody cared. So we just burned them and reinstalled them, but that took time, right? That was not like
Yeah.
something that could just be done overnight. And then we had to go group by group and facility by facility. So yeah, I think overall, globally, it only took 2 weeks, which was amazing.
But
And I
still, that's
forget how
2
many
weeks.
endpoints it was. It was like 30,000 endpoints, something like that. So it's crazy. But uh, with that said, yeah, it's you have two routes you can go, and one's the less hard route. I wouldn't say it's the easy route, but it's less hard.
But
And
it's
then you got the
expensive.
hard route. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess both are expensive, right? Because sometimes people don't think like, oh, this is only going to take me like 2 days. It's not that big of a deal. Like, screw the 10 mil, right?
Yeah.
And the other end of it, they forget that, okay, if this actually takes 2 weeks, it's going to take me maybe another month after that to help my, you know, remote workers and all these other sites rebuild their systems. Overall, maybe it's about the same, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they even spend more trying to rebuild it and say, screw that. I don't deal with the
Well,
evil.
and
I
it's
don't
the
I don't
safer
pay
route
evil
too, right?
hackers.
Because you're not going to get, if you're rebuilding it, that you're not going to get infected with something else.
Yeah, at
So
least.
that is the safer route. But that is a good point. I forgot to actually mention that. So I actually did a webinar not too long ago with Source Defense about the hidden costs of incident response.
Hmm.
And in there, it was not, the hidden cost that we charge, right? Like you get one bill and then all of a sudden we tack on all these cool add-ons now. But the hidden costs, such as like involving other contractors that need to come in and help do recovery, or the IT staff that needs to work overtime, or the legal and PR team that needs to do um, PR control, making sure that the message is out there that, this isn't affecting individuals, blah, 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 et cetera. And then you got your legal stuff where, if you have to involve law enforcement or the legal counsel that you have on staff, or even if it's related to PHI or PCI, you've got some hidden costs there, right? Like if credit card data was stolen, the brands can issue fines. You got GDPR that you got to worry about, especially like if you have a system that's in the European Union, and that they any European citizens information was stolen. There's some fines there. You've got credit monitoring fines. I mean, there's a lot that gets tacked onto the bill, the overall bill, versus just calling in the IR team. So,
Yeah. So
and
like, regardless of how you look at it, it's an expensive thing to happen to you, right? So,
yeah. Yeah, it's
and I
like a
guess,
DUI, right? Like you don't want to get a DUI. It's
yeah, you
no matter
definitely don't
what,
want to
it's
get it.
always going to be like 10 grand plus.
But I
And
mean,
you're going to be paying for it for years.
but it's definitely, some of these companies, is it their fault? Like, could they have prevented it? Because like at the end of the day, like majority of these things that we see is really just the wrong guy clicking the wrong link, and it's just downhill from there, you know?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably the worst part of the job for me is tracking down the origin and finding out that it was like some single mom who's like, just trying to do her job,
Yeah.
and she clicked on, she works in customer
HR,
service. Yeah.
anybody. Yeah,
And she
totally.
got some message from someone saying that like their steak was bad and they wanted a refund. Here's the receipt. And she opened up the receipt and now she's infected, and she's infected the whole company. Uh, like that was something that we saw with Fin7, right? Like back when they were targeting the quick serve restaurants and stuff like that. Customer service was just trying to do their job and give refunds. And these guys were like sending emails that were like, oh, here's my receipt. And then it was infected with something, right? Or had macros in the Microsoft Word or something. And
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
exactly what happened here with Ryuk was, I'm not going to say what department, but it was someone unrelated to IT and security. And they opened up the thing and affected the whole freaking world for that client. It's just sad because who knows what happens to them. I don't know if they lose their job or not, but hopefully not.
well, I mean, like, even though sometimes it's like, okay, these guys, maybe they're not the IT staff, they're not very tech savvy, and they don't really pay attention or whatnot. But, social engineering is really stepping up their game, right? They make really good websites that look really legit. They target anybody, right? It just depends how much they've researched you. And if they know that, hey, this guy has been looking at baseball and he's all about baseball life and whatnot. And if we put an email here that says, hey, we're giving, baseball tickets for 80% off, something simple. I mean, it seems innocent enough, right? So you may click on it. Not all of these phishing ones are like, hey, this is your CEO, call me immediately. I need you to do me a favor.
Yeah. This is a Nigerian prince.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna send you $50 million. Just tell me where.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
we did. I mean, I worked for a large manufacturer, clothing manufacturer, and we would do internal phishing campaigns. And one of them was right around Super Bowl. We're like, yeah, we're giving away free football jerseys. Pick the team of your choice and what you want on the back, and we'll send that out. And Meg, the number, I won't even say the percentage, but it was over 80%
yeah,
of
like
the
what
company
guy
clicked
what
on
guy
that.
is not gonna click on that? Like I
Right.
would want a free jersey. Hell yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it was terrible. But if you know exactly what to put in a email and you can play on and I've talked about this before, if you can play on headlines and current times and current events, you can get people to fall for stuff pretty easily because it doesn't look like a regular phishing template, where I need help now, please send money.
Yeah, exactly. All with a bunch of misspellings and broken English and whatnot. But
So,
but I guess at the end of the day, ransomware, it's a big issue. Companies, if you're listening, I mean, try to prepare yourselves as best you can, right? Like have a backup system. So if you do have to take the main network offline for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, have a plan B. Like go have a hot site ready or something, right, Matt? I mean,
yep.
some
I mean,
companies don't
asset.
because it's expensive to have, but
Yeah, I was just going to say having an asset list, right? Like an asset database, and identifying your critical systems. That is key to so many different things. That's key to instant response. That's key to risk assessments, everything, right? Like just knowing which systems are critical, mission critical to your company, and making sure that you have backup plans and disaster recovery plans and business continuity plans for each of those is critical, not just for ransomware. Sorry, keep going.
yeah, totally. I mean, I guess maybe to add to that, at the very minimum, at the very minimum, companies out there set up some kind of endpoint detection, right? Something. So many people are, you know, how many times have we come in and they don't have any endpoint detection? And then now we have to roll one out. It says, well, if you had this 3 months ago and you guys actually forked up the money then, now you guys have to buy it anyway.
Yep,
I
job
mean,
security. No,
just a
that's
little bit, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
A lot
job
of our
security. Thank
incidents
you
are
guys
that they
for,
don't have something running. Yep.
yeah. Well, I
And
mean,
with
I
that
guess
said,
it's a
that's
good
actually a good
thing.
point. With that said, Cash, CrowdStrike, Carbon Black, Sentinel One, they're all doing free endpoint protection right now. So contact us if you need that information. We'll definitely help you get set up with that.
Yeah,
And you can contact
totally.
those companies too. You don't need to contact us, but if you would,
But call us
if you
anyway.
want us, to, yeah, we could definitely help you with that. Yeah, really cool that they're doing that. That's all during this COVID-19 stuff. So definitely take advantage of it. Even if you just want to see a POC of it, I definitely highly recommend that. So
Yeah, totally. And they are kind of fun, right? You can kind of see what's happening.
I think
And if
they're
something
awesome.
does pop up, yeah, I love playing with it for sure
Yeah.
personally. So
I mean, we live and breathe those systems. So, but, but yeah, I think they're great.
so definitely endpoint protection, have a backup strategy, have some kind of budget. If you don't have cyber insurance, get it. You never know when you're going to need it. But dude, these hackers, they're professionals. They do this for a living. They don't go to 9 to 5 jobs. This is their bread and butter. They're out there right now as we speak, typing up a bunch of script to make their jobs faster, to make your jobs harder. And hey, so
And they keep
just
doing it because they're making money.
they're
Like,
making a
this is
lot of
no
money.
joke. Like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, I just did a lecture last night and I was talking about kind of the globalization of cybersecurity cybercrime, and talking about different groups, and, Fin7, Carbonac, those groups made $1 billion around the
Woohoo!
world, right?
No
Like,
kidding.
doing what they were doing. And now you've got ransomware, which disables freaking companies.
That's
People are
crazy, man.
paying money like crazy. So
That's insane. Maybe we're on the wrong side of the fence, man.
I wonder that all the time. FBI, if you're listening, I'm just joking.
I'm not. I'm definitely not joking.
I'm shaking my head no, but I'm saying
I'm
no, but
saying
I'm
yes.
shaking my head yes.
Totally. But nonetheless, the IR team at Tevora, we're always here to help you guys out and protect you. So hopefully no one gets hacked. But if you do, reach out to us. Any questions, definitely let us know. Where do they send questions to, Matt?
Podcast at TevoraTalks.com.
Podcast at TevoraTalks.com. Send your questions, as Matt says, rude remarks,
Yep.
comments.
Topic ideas, by the way, would be great.
Yeah, topic ideas.
And we have some upcoming topics that we want to discuss too, or at least announce. So we'll be doing episodes dedicated to different attack groups, and also just history in general for cybersecurity. So look forward to those.
And if you're still listening at this part of the show, we're actually going to be doing another episode tomorrow with none other than the cloud security guru himself, Chris Callis. And he has a pretty cool topic. If you guys have been paying attention to the news, Apple and Google are trying to team up right now to come up with a clever way to help track coronavirus and track user activity and whatnot. But of course, there's a lot of privacy stuff around that and a lot of weird things to go over. But Chris has all the details. So stay tuned for that and be sure to listen in. And aside from that, thanks for listening. Send us any questions you got. And we're looking forward to chatting with you all one more round.
Hasta luego.
Later, Matt.